Hey, everybody. Welcome to another great episode of the ReLaunch Real Estate Podcast. This is Patrick Keller, your host, and I am with Jaime today. Jaime is a really good friend of mine, and she's also a title rep at Chicago Title in the Indianapolis area. She's been incredibly pivotal in our success at Crest Point Real Estate. She's an amazing person. So, Jaime, without further ado, I'd love you to just introduce yourself and tell everybody where you're located and about yourself.
Thank you, Patrick. My name is Jaime Kester. Again, as you mentioned, I'm with Chicago Title. It'll be 17 years in January that I've been with the same company. I'm pretty loyal. They've also been extremely good to me. As you mentioned, I'm in the Indianapolis area. My territory, I cover Avon, Mooresville, and a little portion of Greenwood as well.
And you've been doing title sales for how many years again?
Almost 17 January 4th.
And how'd you step into it?
Crazy. I had just taken a position in sales in the assisted living for an assisted living company. And my cousin, her and her mother have been in the title industry for many years. And they were, my cousin was in sales, and the sales manager was like, we need somebody, for West Side. Do you know of anybody? So she reached out to me, and initially I said no. Had no interest because I was doing very well in the assisted living and growing and loved it. And then I took a step back after some things changed, and a lot of hours, a lot of weekends, a lot of on call, and decided why not go for the interview. And so here I am.
So have you been in sales, most of your professional life?
No, crazy enough. My first career, I did not go to a 4-year college. I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I was a medical assistant and also an esthetician for a dermatologist cosmetic surgeon. So I did that for 7 years. And one of my clients in that industry recruited me into the assisted living because I thought I would do very well in sales with that.
Okay. So sales wasn't something you necessarily went to school for. It just came natural for you. You've been doing this for 17 years. And that's what I want to get into. That's the meat of this conversation. Our listener base is mostly real estate agents. And so sales is obviously a huge aspect of that. If we're not making sales, we're not, getting paid. We have to keep the lights on and pay our bills. So I want to talk to you about that. Starting out in sales for you the first time, so you were in nursing home sales and then you went into title. Did you seek help from anybody, or did you just kind of have to figure it out from the get-go?
Probably a little bit of both, quite honestly. In the assisted living, we did have some training, but along with sales, had to learn a lot about the assisted living part. Moving forward to the title industry, I had two relatives that I leaned on quite a bit for the knowledge part of it. And then sales part of it, Chicago Title being a part of a Fortune 500 company, they did some sales trainings with us. I've got to travel a little bit with that. They'd bring people to us here in the Indianapolis market. But a lot, I feel like in this industry is relationship based as well. I think it's half and half with the sales ability versus the relationship aspect of it.
All right, so let's jump into that. What do you think are the most important things in developing relationships with people in sales?
I think just being real. I think being yourself, not being fake. We're all human, right? Just kind of bringing my own personal life into things. Not too much. I mean, there's a balance there. But I don't know, just I think being real and just, I love people. I love talking to people. I've always been a social butterfly. So just more on the personal side. So,
yeah. So tell us a little bit about your title, what the sales cycle looks like. So, for us in real estate, we are presented a lead or a referral. And then sometimes that lead or that referral is not ready to do anything for like 6 to 12 months, sometimes even 2 years. But sometimes they're like ready to go right away. For you guys, it's probably different, right? Like you're probably introduced to a real estate agent or you get a lead per se where, you find out there's a new agent in a marketplace that you service. What's the sales cycle look like for you in title in order for someone to become, your client, basically, that sends you orders?
So prior to COVID, in the real estate industry, a lot different than like the medical side, pretty much free access to the real estate offices. Some are closed where you have to have appointments to get in. So it's a couple of things. One, it's out being visible, making the sales calls, getting lists or learning from the managing brokers who are new agents coming into their offices, sitting down, doing one-on-ones, trying to teach them about title so they understand. It's also doing a lot of research and targeting your big producers. In the past, it used to be targeting our listing agents because they were the ones that directed the title business. But now in our marketplace, as you know, our purchase agreements probably changed, 7, 8, 9 years ago, where the buyer's agents choose. So really it's targeting new agents. It's targeting your established agents, getting in with your brokers, and just being visible, whether that's sales calls, that's on the phone. Obviously, we've had to get a little bit more creative in 2020,
Right.
and sales calls haven't done that as much. Also, as I've grown, and I'm really hands-on with my account, so I find myself not as visible. I'm tied more to a computer and our computer system so that I can look into files and help with some different things. So, but yeah, so it looks a little bit different. We have leads handed, it's right in front of us versus you guys, right? But then it's also having a contact management program to be able to do the follow-ups once we learn of a new agent, or once we've had a great meeting with an agent that is a high producer.
So I want to touch on your follow-up in a little bit because Jamie, I've never met a title rep that does as good a job as you. I'm not even joking. I'm not sugarcoating that. And that's why I wanted to interview you, because that is a parallel in our business. Like in real estate, we have to follow up all of the time in order to get a sale. But we'll hit on that here in a second. My next question would be, how long for you does it take from the moment that you get introduced to this real estate agent or this potential sale, right?
Mm-hmm.
In order for them to give you a sale or give you an order or you to close a deal? How long is that cycle on average, do you think?
Oh man, that's a tough one, because if I'm in an office where I've got the broker, I've got you saying use Jamie, then I think it's a pretty immediate, and I've had success with that because your agents trust you, and so that's a pretty that not easy, but if we click and they're not introduced to any other title rep at the time, then the cycle is I get their first order, and as long as we do a good job, then they're repeat. Also, the time I spend with them and the new agent training and just teaching them and answering my phone during hours, after hours, that has been instrumental as well. Some of my offices where maybe there's other title people in there that also are very good, then, it's just I would say that maybe I get them on the buy side of a transaction and we do a good job, and maybe we've got some issues I've helped resolve. So that cycle, we've not done a good job of tracking that. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
It just varies.
So I'd say like the equivalent of like a top producer, you chasing a top producer, trying to get a relationship with them is probably there's a lot of us out there. That's probably equivalent to like us chasing an experienced seller, like someone that's sold several times and they want to make sure that they hire the best agent.
Yes.
And that requires a lot of follow-up for us, and also like portraying that we're delivering a high quality service, providing a lot of value up front. So my question would be, let's say you're pursuing a top producer that's been doing this for a while. How long does it take for that relationship to pan out for you? Do you have any examples of that? And then also, like how'd you portray your value to that person in order for them to switch, who they would have, I guess, originally hired and then come to you?
One example, well, and I don't know if you recall, I mean, you're definitely an example. I know that you're very loyal. And so I think, at least it took a couple years, before, probably 2 years with you. And there's another top producer in the Hendricks County area that it took a good, oh my gosh, when something changed in his current, with his, and much like you, the title company, some changes there internally. It was probably 4 or 5 years that it was a constant, but I try to find that fine balance. Like, I don't want to call you every week. I don't, it's monthly, it's quarterly, finding that balance so that you're not avoiding my phone calls, or if I come into the office, like, I don't want to see you. So,
Yeah.
but I've had some top, 4 or 5 years. That's like, oh my gosh, finally.
This is why I
So,
love talking to folks that don't do real estate sales, but they also do sales in other areas, because there's so many parallels. Like, I could
mhm.
tell you, and agents know that, let's say they're cold calling a neighborhood, or they get a lead online from somebody who's experienced, who's done this before, and they'll tell us, hey, we were just looking. We're not really serious right now. We're probably 2 or 3 years out. It's our job to make sure that we're there for them in 2 or 3 years and before.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this person that took you 4 or 5 years to turn into one of your, trusted clients. How often did you reach out? Like, what did you say when you reached out? How did you get them to finally, trust in you?
I would do various things with a mixture of sales calls. I wouldn't want to ask to see them every time I'm in the office, because again, I think there's a balance of interrupting your day and making sure that it, you don't become a nuisance or annoying. But a balance of phone calls, a balance of emails, cards, like personal written cards. Um, and just staying on time. I mean, always just reminding them, I want to be your active backup title company. If something should change in your current situation, then I want to be that active backup person. So just various things, again, with the sales calls, the handwritten notes, the emails, asking agents in their office if, put a good word in for me,
Yeah.
with that particular agent, and just asking for the referral to that person.
So not overly pushy,
No.
patient, you're here when they need you, kind of thing, and just providing value when you can.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that. I love that sales approach. I mean, there are people that are successful in sales who are the opposite, right? Like, they dominate the conversations. They try to, I don't want to say steer, because that's a negative word, but they try to kind of like influence, action. And I
Mhm.
think there are people that are successful in that. That's not how we do business, and I know that's not how you do business. But I ultimately think it creates a more loyal client and customer at the end of the day versus the other way.
Yes, I agree.
Tell me about, so what was your best year in the business? Let's talk about that, and what did it look like for you in regards to, whatever you're comfortable sharing, and the
Mhm.
amount of sales or whatever, and then also like how much time it took, all that stuff.
So, year to date, 2020, believe it or not, has been my best year. It very close to 2018 for me. Um, I it's interesting. So it's a mixture. So we're very good about tracking. Obviously, we've had a refi boom. Here, local in our Chicago title market, we're segmented. So I don't have a ton of lender business. Several years ago, one of our sales managers worked in the Colorado business before coming to Indiana, and always noticed when there's refi boom, then the sales reps don't pay as much attention to the realtors.
Oh
And then
yeah.
vice versa, when the refis go away, then we don't communicate and we're not in front of the lenders. So here they created where we have a lender sales rep, we have a commercial sales rep, and then we have our residential resale. We focus just on the purchase business. So my focus has primarily been the purchase, but in certain parts, like in Mooresville, Canby, I have some lender business and some referrals too with my agents. Of like, I want this lender to use you, and that relationship is there. So this year's my best. I've grown 17% as of November, year over year.
Wow.
Um, and we sit down and we track. I know I sit down next Monday with my sales manager, and we will take a look at last year's numbers, and we kind of back into it. So we'll look at monthly goals, how many I closed in that month, and then we'll back into what my open orders. I want to, probably increase next year another 3 to 4%. I haven't fine tuned that yet. So,
Yeah.
but I'm very driven that way with my numbers. I'm very driven with the revenue that I bring into the company. and what the closed orders and backing into, okay, then I have to each month, this is how many open orders I have to get. So 90% of my business is on the purchase side, and then 10% is on the refi side. But again, that definitely helped with my numbers this year with that refi business.
I think a lot of people in sales shoot from the hip. I think a lot of people in sales are like, I just want to have a good year this year.
I want to do better than last year.
Exactly. I want to make more money than I did last year or whatever. You sound like you really inspect, every month what you've done and then what you want to do and goal setting. Maybe let's dive into that for a second. So how do you goal set each month? It sounds like you sit down with the sales manager, but how do you what's your system in setting goals for yourself, tracking your sales, all those things?
So we look again year over year in revenue, and then we kind of sit down and think, what's the market gonna? We don't know exactly, right? I mean, in March we thought the market's going to go away with COVID, and that didn't happen. So this year was really hard to plan month by month. We set it for the year, but then if we're not hitting it, or if we're really killing it, then we kind of sit back down and revisit those goals. So again, we back into it. So look at the overall revenue, and then look at what we think the market's going to do. And if I want to grow 3 or 4%, then I look at each month, and like January, February is a little bit slower. So it goes by like what time of the year and how we set those goals. So looking at the revenue, okay, I want to grow 3 or 4%. How many closings? I know my average fee per file on a purchase. I know my average fee per file on a refi. So I know what I have to do each month to get that. My first sales manager at Chicago Title, I probably shouldn't say this, he's not with us anymore, but he always said, you're only as good as last month's numbers. And that resonated with me. I mean, and it's true. I never want to get comfortable. I always want to do better. I always want to do better than the previous year, but I love that Chicago Title helps coach me, and we have the right people in the right place on what that looks like. And it's not just, I'm just going to figure it out along the way. So.
Yeah. You're actively setting goals, reassessing your goals, and then you're breaking them down, which I think a lot of people are also guilty of this. Like, hey, I want to sell $5 million this year, but they don't know what it takes to sell $5 million in real estate, right? They don't know how many calls that takes to do it. They don't know how many clients it takes or closings it takes. They just say it. So you're really, really diving into your numbers. And I think real estate agents should do that as well. You mentioned that you're really driven. You're this naturally driven person. Do you think that is natural for you, or do you think that was something that you learned? Your drive.
I learned it. I do. I think I don't know that prior to a sales position. Well, I say that, I'm very blessed that I had hardworking parents, and maybe, I was driven, like that was passed on to me from their hard work. And I never knew what I wanted to do in life. And what's interesting with title is, anybody you talk to in the title industry, it's not, we don't go to school for title. There's not college education specifically for that. You just kind of luck into it, and you either really love it or you really don't, or you really dislike it. So yeah, I think it comes from my parents. I have to give them some credit of being driven that way.
Yeah, I think all of us, genetically have personalities, right? And we pick up some things from our families, and then we also pick up things that we want to do naturally and inside of us. And then we have to learn things too. Like we have to learn what we like and what we love. And when you blend all of those things together, you can be a very successful person. You just have to find those, your natural tendencies, what's really inside of you, and then also what you love. And it sounds like you landed in that.
Yes.
Let's talk about, so you've been doing title for a while. And you've seen a lot of real estate agents succeed. You've seen a lot of real estate agents fail. And let me ask you, what habits, routines, cultures, what habits, routines, and cultures have you seen in real estate agents that are successful? Like, what are they doing consistently to be successful?
Sure. So I the ones that show up every day, that come into the office, the ones that do sit down and they want to learn how title works, how the lending side works, the inspection side, they learn everything inside and out about the industry to be successful. Systems and processes, I think the systems are the biggest key. Getting, once they get to a certain point in their business, I think hiring an admin. I don't know what the numbers, I know it used to be what, 4 or 5 million after producing that much, you should have an admin. But I think they really help keep agents where you're dollar productive, you're out producing and they're doing the paperwork, but they're just as essential as what you are because they're keeping the transaction going. If there's any issues with title, they're taking care of it, they're working on it. So being very systematic, being very intentional. The successful agents I see, they're time blockers. They're writing cards. They're time blocking for writing notes. They're time blocking for prospecting. They're not easily distracted. Because it's easy when sales reps are coming in the office to distract agents when they're there and not maybe putting not rules necessarily, just being very strict on, I guess, on, okay, I'm here for this hour and I'm going to be making my phone calls. Those are the ones I see that are more successful.
Have you ever walked into a real estate office when you were doing, personal sales calls and just saw something that like absolutely amazed you and you thought this is why they're successful?
Yeah. Doors closed, sign on the door, like prospecting. I mean, they make it very apparent, like, okay, do not bother me. And obviously I would never walk in a closed door office with sign up or even a closed door office. But yes, you can tell that they're very serious and known to everybody there that they don't want to be bothered during that time frame.
So you're basically saying that you find that the most successful real estate brokers, agents, and companies are the ones that treat it like a job.
Yes.
Yeah. The ones that are consistent and show up every day.
Yes.
Go figure.
I would have thought.
Right? Yeah. Have you ever walked into a company that just kind of like shoots from the hip and is unorganized? That's ultra successful. Do you usually see those going hand in hand? Or do you usually
that are still ultra successful?
Yeah.
I do. I mean, I think it's not as there's not as many, absolutely. That's very few and far in between.
Yeah.
Very few.
So mostly you find that the most systematic, organized, and the folks that time block in real estate are the ones that are the most successful.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Awesome. Let's ask you, what was your worst year in business and what did that look like?
So my worst year was, and it's for me. So I have been very fortunate that ever since I've been in the business, year over year, I've grown. 2019, I did not grow. I went down. That was hard. That being said, I still, not tooting my own horn, but it definitely helps. It was definitely, I won an award for being in the top 5% of all of Fidelity National Title Group. We're a Fortune 500 company that we're all over the United States. We're in Canada. So, but my numbers were down. So I don't know how that happened. But 18, I had an amazing year. I didn't think 18 was going to be possible to beat until this year.
Yeah.
And again, as of November, like I think I barely now passed 2018. Okay. So I haven't gotten my full report from December and full revenue like year over year. But I pay close attention to all that and I'm almost positive I beat it. So, what did you do in that worst year? Like, what did you do and say, I'm going to do this X, Y, Z to make sure that next year's better? What action steps did you take? Well, so much like you, Patrick, I know you don't take all the credit, right, for the success of your team. It's, I came from a sports background. There's no I in team, right? So my success, honestly, is because of my team's success. The girls and guys in our office, there's very few guys in the title industry, but that I'm around, it's a team effort, right? I can get the business in the door, but if they're not servicing it, then we lose that business. And so we had some escrow changes, staffing changes in 19, that definitely hurt. And until we got the next person in the right place on the escrow side, then we started to take off again. So I think some agents, they, maybe their loyalty, they get scared, right? They think it's going to affect their business. And if you got a brand new person coming into the industry, they want to give them some time. So they go to the next title company that's been asking for that business. And so that, I would say, was probably what hurt me in 19.
So, if I could wrap that up, it's like, if you're a great salesperson, that's great, but you got to have the people behind you to service client, right? To provide the service that you're selling, and it has to be good and it has to be high quality, or else ultimately your sales will dip too.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense, and so true. It's so true in our marketplace too, in our industry as well. We have to, like you said earlier, if you're a producer that's selling like $4 or $5 million a year or more, I usually tell my guys, if it's like 30 transactions or more a year, you absolutely have to hire an admin, and it's probably too late. Like, you should have done it a long time ago.
Yeah.
And you have to make sure that your quality is good the entire time. I interviewed an agent a couple of weeks ago that sells 94 houses a year, and she does it all by herself.
Ooh.
And I don't know how she does that. I don't know how she delivers a high quality service, but she does. So she's definitely rare. I mean,
Yeah.
most of us need help halfway, half of that.
Yeah.
And you definitely nailed it on the head that you have to have a quality service and a really good customer service experience behind you as a salesperson.
And going back to that, then, how they're doing it, I think then that work-life balance, right?
Right.
When you're in sales, it's hard to shut it down. You can't. Like,
Right.
there's, unfortunately.
How many agents do you think that you are like the go-to for?
I mean, I do have a large territory. It's interesting, that question. Never been faced with that before. Am I their go-to or Chicago title? So after hours, they'll call me during I think they'll learn during the transaction, unless they need something, or like they don't understand something, they're more comfortable calling me. But a lot of times too, they'll call the offices, because really, again, the escrow side, or who's making it happen, getting it done. Not that I won't step in, because I think that's helped with my success as well. But I mean, I would say, I mean, I have a larger customer base than this, but
Sure.
like really go to, 25, 30, where, they're going to call me before they call the escrow staff.
That's awesome, because it's likely that those 25 or 30 agents also have, a group of folks that work with them. And so the web is much larger than just 25 or 30 agents.
Yes.
And it's like an agent who has 25 or 30 past clients that they've closed that are happy. That web is so much deeper, right?
Yeah.
Like their friends, their family, and all that. And it just has to come to be the right time for them to be your, for you to be their go-to.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. Let me ask you this. It might be kind of a difficult question, but what opportunities do you think real estate agents right now should be taking advantage of in our marketplace?
So I know for me, due to COVID this year, it's made me really focus on my database, on my contact management program. It's made me really focus on, okay, how can I get in front of it's the phone. It's just picking it. So it's being very organized and really thinking out, like, who am I going to call? What impact is that going to have on my business? And it's not just me that it impacts. It's, I think about all of our staff. Like, what I'm doing today really is going to affect, are we going to hire more? Are we going to get more help? We're all on commission as well. I don't mind sharing that. Like
Yeah.
we're compensated differently at escrow versus sales at Chicago Title, but we all make commission off of the deals. So we all care. We want more.
Sure.
So, it's always in the back of my mind, like what I'm doing is really helping the girls in the office too. But what they're doing, what they keep in mind is their customer service and doing things that also helps me as well. So it's easier to sell when we're like, your Avon office is awesome. You're doing a good job. It's easier to sell.
Yeah. You're
So
selling something you believe in
yeah,
and
yeah.
you know it's going to work.
Yeah, it's
How,
hard. I've had times in my career early on, after the whole 0809 debacle. Woo, that was hard to sell.
yeah.
We started setting a trend at Chicago Title in the beginning. It was not liked by our customer base, and we definitely, because I was newer, I was growing. It didn't have an impact on my business, but we were having to make decisions on, letting people go and revisiting how we completely do our business. And we're still doing now. We're the trendsetters, I feel like, of the industry,
Hmm.
and other people have kind of followed suit in how we're doing things.
Have you
So
seen any relationship between that market and our market today? Like 0809, have you seen that happen or anything trending that way?
I haven't, not that's not coming to my mind. No.
Yeah,
Do I think it's coming again? Yeah, because we
sure.
know historically we're going to do this. And I have been saying the last probably 6 years of my career, oh, this is too good to be true. Like
Hmm.
save, 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 because we're going to come across a rainy day. And, I don't know when that's going to happen, but it will.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, you have to look at history. History repeats itself for
Mm-hmm.
sure. And there's a lot of doomsdayers out there right now that are saying, it's around the corner. I don't know if it's, tomorrow or if it's 2 years from now, but at some point the market has to stabilize.
Yeah. And I don't want to be negative and say, oh, it's going to go down. We'll figure it out. Right. I
Sure.
mean, and the positive, whether, I don't mean this to sound bad, but the positive when it does happen for you, for us, like it'll help weed out some of our part-timers that don't take it serious.
Yep.
Some of our, lending companies and title companies that are doing great in today, but it'll weed out some of the ones that it would need to, and as agents as well.
Yeah,
So
I mean, Keller Williams, like the one of the largest brands in the entire country and obviously now international, they were created in the crash of 08 and 09. I mean,
it's crazy.
that's when they became ultra successful. And
Mm-hmm.
so like there's opportunities if that happens, there's opportunities for agents to have better years than they had when it's good,
Right.
because a lot of the noise is reduced. And so long as they do exactly what you say, they show up every day, they get on the phone, they talk to the people that are contemplating real estate, and they introduce themselves, it's going to work. People have to move,
Yeah.
houses have to sell no matter the climate. So
Yeah. Unfortunately, we deal with deaths, we deal with divorces,
yeah.
and so we're still going to have a housing market.
Yeah.
So,
What's the best piece of sales advice you think you've ever heard or received?
I think it just being consistent, showing up, being very intentional.
Yeah.
Um, I think also being never getting that big head or ego, or just what's the word I'm looking for? I'm lacking a word.
Don't become complacent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And that's something that I've watched some amazing sales reps in the title industry that I always looked up to. After you do it a while, right? Kind of get it, that excitement goes away, and they become complacent. I'm like, please don't. I don't want to be that sales rep.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah.
I like that. What about what have you seen in agents that fail? Like what failures have you seen in agents that you would want to tell agents to avoid?
I mean, I think unfortunately, a lot of people get in this business because they think it's easy.
Uh-huh.
In being a real estate agent, especially right now, right? You put a home on the market, but we know that you've got inspections, you've got negotiations. There's so much behind the scenes that you're doing. So I don't know that they really have a great picture of what being a real estate agent looks like, being organized. So it's um, let me repeat your question
Yeah,
again. I
just like what
apologize.
have you seen? No, it's okay. What have you seen agents do that you would consider failures that you would tell agents to avoid?
Not showing up in the office,
Yeah.
not it's I think not planning on how much does it take to be in real estate, like your dues, how much money you have to be put back, because you're not gonna make a commission right away, right? It's going to be at least 30 days usually. So just being prepared. And then I think I see a lot of, they don't work their sphere of influence. They don't put something in an organized manner into a database of people that they know and tap into that. It's just fly by the seat of their pants and hope that they make it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And that's a lot of agents are guilty of that.
mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of agents are guilty because of what you said. They think it's going to be easy. They think this as soon as they get their license, the phone's going to start ringing
Yeah.
just because they posted on Facebook that they're licensed, and that's just not how it works. You have to prove yourself in the industry. You have to go out and ask for business, and you have to be in front of people. And that takes me all the way back to what I said I was going to follow up with you on was follow up. So you are the best, like I said earlier, title rep I've ever met in regards to follow up. And not only just to like get an agent to send you orders, but even after the agent starts sending you orders or after an agent commits to work with you, you continue to do that. Like you
Thank you.
continue to make those phone calls, check on them, all that kind of thing. Tell our audience kind of like what you say, what you do, how often you think is a good amount of time to kind of follow up with what we'd call like a prospective client. Like what do you say? What's your focus when you do it?
Um, you know, what's important to me is it's not just about getting that order in, but it's the experience. So a big thing in my follow up is I keep track. I get notification every time a deal closes,
Mm-hmm.
and so I have a folder on my computer. I go and I save that closed file. And if I haven't talked to the agent and that, the last 3 or 4 weeks, then I call. How was your closing? I want to make sure everything went well, because I never want to take it for granted. I never want to take the relationship, the business relationship, the personal relationship for granted. So it's just making sure that we did a good job. I think a lot of agents in our industry don't like confrontation. So if something goes bad, they're afraid to call and say, this is not good. So they just
Yeah.
move their business over. So the closed phone call after a transaction is important to me, because if I don't know that something went wrong, and we all make mistakes, we're human. And sometimes unfortunately, people think it's the title company and not necessarily,
Yeah.
there's always more to it. And I'll be first to admit when we make a mistake. I will never lie about it. I'll tell you, because I feel like it's how we handle that mistake. But so I think the big thing for me is just making sure that when you are producing, you have a lot of closings. That's an easy follow up, right? How are we doing? I just want to make sure, how's our systems? How's our processes? Did you get your closing statement in time? How was the actual closing experience itself? Because we have a lot of different closers, a lot of different personalities. So
Mm-hmm.
so that's just that has been an easy kind of thing for me in a system, if you will. Closed files, like who am I going to call, who I haven't talked to in a while. Again, I don't think you're busy, you've got an office to run, you probably don't want to hear from me every single week, but I feel like I probably talk to you at least every 3 to 4 weeks,
Yeah.
just to make sure Emily, we're in communication with too, your admin, which is she's awesome. So,
Yeah.
but it's important for me to make sure that I'm in contact with both her and you, because it's important for me also to know that we're making her life and her job easier too. Because
Yeah.
I'm sure she gives you feedback, and if her life isn't easier, you're going to know it.
100%.
So yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think real estate agents could put that in their business. Like I think and I would say real estate agents are terrible at what you just described. Like real estate agents very rarely after a closing are calling 3 or 4 weeks after the closing or whatever and saying, "Hey, how are things going? How was the experience? How could we better ourselves?"
Right.
I mean,
Right.
I know that we have an automated system that does that, but I've never heard or even on like a podcast anywhere or read a book that says, "Hey, make sure that you follow up with your clients after closing and ask how the experience was."
Hmm.
Remind them that you're here to help, all of those things. Ultimately, I think that leads into more sales
Yes.
because and you don't even have to ask a referral. You're just
Right.
really just checking in on them, and that puts you top of mind
Hmm.
again. So you're top of mind with that person, and you're showing that you care. So I mean, there's guys that are listening to this. There's your $10,000 idea for the day. Like you could just call clients every single time a deal closes, wait, 2 or 3 weeks after they've settled in and just ask how their experience was and if there was anything that you could have done better. Don't ask for a referral. Don't say, "Hey, is your neighbor ready to sell yet?" Or "Is your cousin ready to sell?" or something. Just literally ask them how they're doing
Yeah.
and if there's anything you can do to better that.
Isn't there is it, I think it's a NARS statistic, and it's been, I haven't heard like a most in the last couple of years updated one, but I know for real estate agents, it was in the 80, mid 80, high 80% that the home buyer and seller didn't hear from their agent again after closing. They had a good experience, but they didn't use them again because they forgot who the agent was years later.
Oh,
That follow up was never there in place.
I believe that. I've not seen that
Yeah.
statistic, but
Yeah.
I believe it. I believe it could be higher
It,
because I think that
yeah.
they give them the thank you gift at closing and they say, "See you later."
Or they're friends with them on Facebook and think, oh, they see me, they know I'm in real estate, or they're my friend. I think it's such a, it's key in this, in our industry period, and I think any sales obviously. And I think that people want to know that you do genuinely care about them. How is the house, or how was your closing experience at Chicago Title, or it goes hand in hand. So
I love that. We have an automated system that follows up with people after closing for over 5,000 days. Now, not 5,000 days in a row, but
okay.
like at segmented periods over the course of 5,000 days after their closing.
That's awesome.
It just says like, at like four, I don't know the exact day, but like around like 3 or 4,000 days, it's like, "Hey, are you ever interested in hearing what your home is worth? I have a list of contractors, by the way. If you're ever fixing anything or remodeling, let me know." And you're just checking in. How's things going? How are things
Yeah.
going? You have to put those systems in place, and it's okay if it's automated. But I'll tell you, Jamie, like the things that you do just to make a phone call and say, "Hey, how are things going?" And you ask me about, how my daughter is. You ask me about how my family is. If agents did that kind of stuff, if they
Hmm.
called 2 years after closing and they said, "Hey, how's your little one? I know that she was 2 then. She's got to be 4 now. How's she doing?" That kind of stuff goes so much further than just asking for business.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I genuinely care, and I appreciate and respect, and um, I don't get to see and talk to Amanda as much as I do you, but
Yeah, it's much appreciated. And
yeah.
that, I believe that is the future of sales. And I think it always has been.
Yeah.
Like just the core principle of just caring, showing care, and that you're here whenever, here
Yeah.
whenever they need something.
Yeah. Absolutely. I've through my career, not to go into a lot of personal, but I've had some hardships, personal stuff, and I tell you, a lot of my customers that are now friends have gotten me through a lot of tough times.
Yeah,
So and if I can give back and helping, then
sure.
it's pretty
Yeah.
awesome.
That's how the universe should work. I wish everyone believed that, but I feel like that's how the universe should work.
Yeah.
We all need to look after each other.
Yes, absolutely.
So we'll wrap this up because I don't want to take you for too long, but I would say, um, the last thing I would ask you is, are there any questions I didn't ask, or is there any just last piece of advice you'd want to give real estate brokers so that they are successful in our market today?
Um, I think that, I mean, it just aligning yourself. I hope obviously it's with me, but if it's not, there, I've got a lot of good competition out there. I
Yeah.
have a great deal of respect, but aligning themselves and building that relationship and taking the time to learn what we do, because that does become very instrumental in their business. Because I do often see so many times where I'll get a call after hours and they want to know how to write up a purchase agreement or how much they should ask for, closing costs. I'm like, I can't give you that. There's a lot that I can't do. I can't write up the contract, and I'm not privy to a lot of the information, but just aligning yourself with the right people, having that relationship, having your go-to, and just understanding what is needed during the transaction, because there's so many times where I think a transaction goes smoother if the title companies and lending side had all the information that's needed from the agent. The key person in that is the real estate agent,
Yeah.
or the real estate agent gives us access to their client.
Yeah.
so
You
so
you make an amazing point there. And I will definitely say that I have been able to secure clients solely on the premise that I have really good relationships with vendors such as yourself, or like a lender, or even an insurance agent, that have educated me on the process ever since I started. And I'm very educated on title and lending and insurance now, to where when they have an issue, or even if I'm like prospecting them and they bring something up, I know how to explain how all those processes work. Like, what's the best lending, program for them? Or could
mhm.
they save some money on insurance here? Or how does the title work happen, and how quickly does it all go? And, what are they doing when we go under contract? Like, those questions are asked. And by aligning yourself with really good professionals that have educated you on that and have shown you really good qualities of service, I've been able to get a deal. Like, I've been able to get a transaction because I actually had answers. Whereas, maybe another agent would say something like, well, that's up to them,
Yeah,
or you're going to just have to talk to them.
yeah, yeah,
So you totally hit the nail on the head there, that when you're an agent, you have to align yourself with high quality vendors such as yourself, and title, lenders, insurance agents, all these people that you're going to make recommendations to, so that you can be educated, what you're talking about, and you can talk a little bit about it and then refer them later.
yeah. Yep.
For sure. So Jamie, obviously you've identified your territories and where you work. If we were to wrap this thing up with a bow, I would say, agents, if you guys are working in these areas and you want a place to send a title order to, give Jamie a try for sure, because you're not going to experience a more high quality experience there. So Jamie, would you care to share your contact information for everybody, and just kind of how you'd want them to get a hold of you?
Sure. So a couple different ways. You can reach me on my cell phone at 317-679-3368. I will answer during normal business hours and after. Another way is my work email at Jaime, Jaime .Kester, Kester, at ctt.com. Look me up on Facebook. Those are the best ways to get a hold of me.
Awesome. Jamie, thanks so much for joining us. I hope you guys all found this insightful. Reach out to Jamie if you need anything.
Thanks, Patrick. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah.